Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Sleepless Cinematic Podcast, where we explore our shared love for watching and discussing movies recorded in the late after-work hours, often in lieu of a good night's rest. I'm Madeline.
I'm Julian.
And I'm Emilio. The three of us are colleagues at a Midtown Manhattan music school. Yes, music is what brings us together, but movies are what keep us together, talking at the end of the night. So we've created some order to this ongoing trend by recording these conversations, considering an overarching theme while we cycle through 5 unique guidelines for engagement.
You can email us at sleeplesscinematicpod@gmail.com. Seriously, we would love to hear from you. And you can also follow us on Instagram and TikTok, as long as that's still a thing, for updates, highlights, clips, and other visual supplements to the audio we record at Sleepless Cinematic Pod.
In addition to our main cycle episodes, we record and release bonus one-off episodes as we see fit. And we have seen fit this week to discuss Possession, the 1981 film directed by Andrzej Żuławski.
Yes, and starring Sam Neill and Isabelle Adjani in the 2 principal roles. Really, I think it's fitting that we're doing a standalone episode on this. It's a very singular film.
Definitely.
Yes.
And joining us to do that is someone who has been mentioned on this podcast many times before, but is finally coming out of the shadows as a proper guest. And is also, very appropriately to mention, the person who introduced me to this very movie we're discussing. Now, we've had many guests in the past on this podcast who we know very well personally, but this particular one is the first who I can say I've known for just about my entire life. She's made notable off-mic contributions to past episodes of ours, such as those about Inherent Vice, I Saw the TV Glow, and even suggested the topic for our deep dive into the filmography of songwriter Adam Schlesinger. And throughout the many years that we have known each other, we've had countless in-depth conversations about all kinds of artsy things, whether in music, visual art, literature, or, of course, movies. Sometimes I think to myself, why take a graduate course in media studies when you could just talk to my cousin, Sylvie Dranoff?
Welcome.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah, well, it's very good to have you. Like Julian said, I feel like your reputation precedes you on this podcast. No,
in the best of ways.
In the best of ways, yes. As someone who absolutely belongs here with us with a mic in front of them, talking about movies.
Thank you. This is the first time people have said I belong in front of a mic. No, longtime fan of the pod. Really glad to finally be on here.
Thank you.
We're excited to have you. And I've had family on. Julian, you've had family on. So, Emilio, you need to choose a family member to come on.
That's a good point. I'll have to think a little bit about that. And that's no shade on any of my family members. But yeah, all right.
Yeah, when the time is
challenge accepted.
Yes. And we're all, as we've mentioned, we're all here to discuss the 1981 film Possession, which, before we get deep into it, is not to be confused with other films such as Possessor, which is the Brandon Cronenberg film from, I think, 2020. Yeah, you probably noted the last name of that director. That is Brandon Cronenberg, son of David Cronenberg. And appropriately, I haven't seen Possessor yet, but it's not a stretch to assume that it is a fittingly eerie, body horrific type of movie.
That's very true. I should also say that Possession should not be confused with the film The Brood, which is also by Papa Cronenberg, David Cronenberg from 1979, another psychological horror film that is about divorce. Tons of comparisons, I think, between The Brood and Possession. Although they do feel like different movies, conceptually they're very similar. So do not confuse them.
Definitely. And we just recently talked a William Friedkin movie. We cannot confuse Possession with The Exorcist or any of these other like exorcism of kind of movies. Not any of those. And there are no exorcisms in this movie, actually.
So true. And we also definitely cannot confuse it with another film involving a dead dog and a strange creature slowly developing a kind of doppelganger, perhaps, of our main characters, John Carpenter's The Thing.
Oh, good
yes.
point. Very good point.
I've still never seen that.
Oh, that's a good one.
It's a good
dude.
one.
Yeah,
it's
some
fun.
people think it's his best. That's released close in time to Possession too, so another reason why it is not to be confused with.
There's a scene in that movie with a dog that will live in my head for the rest of my life.
Totally.
Yeah.
So beware,
Practical
Julian.
effects.
And given that Possession features some now iconic imagery of one of its principal characters in a certain outfit and has some themes to do with religion, Possession is not to be confused with the film Devil in a Blue Dress.
Definitely.
That was good.
Good point. Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, Denzel Washington film from the mid-'90s, which to my understanding is kind of like a neo-noir sort of thing. I haven't seen it, but I feel like, Emilio, you mentioned it in the past. Have you seen that?
I have seen it, and it's really fun. It's a really good movie. It's Jennifer Beals is also in it. Might be my favorite Jennifer Beals performance. She's really good in that movie. So,
Nice.
and Denzel's just smoking hot through that whole thing. It's so good.
As he tends to be.
Yeah, that's true.
I think it also should not be confused with another movie where a couple's relationship falls apart in front of their young son. Also with a very famous wall that in this film gets punched through. Not Marriage Story, folks.
Yes, of course.
Very different.
That is
Oh,
not
that's a
what I
good
thought you were
point.
going to say.
That's a really
What did
good
you
point.
think?
The wall.
Absolutely. The wall.
It's clear they're very related.
also-
They're in conversation.
Well,
Yeah,
in a later scene around that same wall, there's also a inadvertent cut that the Adam Driver character gets, which I admittedly thought of during a certain scene in Possession.
Oh, definitely.
Oof.
Interesting.
Yeah. So
Interesting.
more reasons not to be confused.
Yeah. Are you guys familiar with the Neill LaBute film Possession
No.
that came out in?
No, I learned about this when researching for this bit. Have you
Yeah.
seen this?
Yeah, I've seen little bits of it. This was a movie that came out around the time when I was working in the video store, watching pretty much everything that came out.
Cool.
This is a weird movie, really weird movie. It stars Gwyneth Paltrow and Aaron Eckhart. They're like academics that are trying to prove that people like centuries ago had an affair. It's really weird. It is definitely not the Possession we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, and I mean, with what you said, Madeline, earlier about how this is not an exorcism movie. There's a bunch of movies that are also titled like The Possession of so-and-so character. This is none of those. But yeah, so this film that we're discussing, Possession, 1981, not any of the other ones. This is a movie that has been kind of circulating in our to-do list as a podcast for, if I'm correct, kind of the whole time we've been doing this.
Maybe.
Sort of,
I remember
yeah.
it being in our OG giant organizer.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's
but
true.
many movies were.
Many were, but this was one that was talked about.
I remember.
from that.
Yeah, I remember this was one that came up, and I asked you guys. I'm like, I don't think I've heard of this movie.
Yeah.
and you
Yeah.
guys had both listed this in our organizer. We had like different
Who has
categories.
seen what
Who's
and
seen what, and
how strongly do they feel one direction or the other?
and you guys had both listed this as like a great movie. And
Yeah.
I was like, how come I've never heard of this?
And I think it was one
Yeah.
of the few that Julian and I had both seen and loved and that you weren't really familiar with at all.
yes,
Mhm.
that's correct.
And as I said already, I mean, I have to credit my knowing about this movie to Sylvie. I feel like we should start with your personal history with the movie. How did you come to Possession?
Well, the first I heard of it was from another movie, actually, in Gaspar Noé's Climax, which, if
okay.
anyone has seen, fantastic movie.
Still need to.
Love it. It is not like anything else. But at the first set of scenes, they're interviewing all the dancers, and there is a TV and a bunch of VHSs behind them. And one of the most prominently seen ones is Possession.
Oh, interesting.
You know, sort
Okay.
of tipping off like, oh, there's an influence there. So it's prominent there, and I see it's in a VHS, and I think, I wonder what this is. And of course, we're in New York City. The theater Metrograph
Yes.
Yeah.
plays it every month.
Like constantly.
Exactly, constantly. It has it at home. So the first time I saw it is my good friend Ben said, we're seeing this. And just took me along to maybe a 9 or 10 or 11 p.m. showing.
Yeah.
And sat in the theater, was blown away. I came out saying, what was that?
Yeah.
I want to see it again. I do not know what I just saw, but it's exactly what I like.
Sweet. And I mean, you told me about that at the time. In fact, I was invited to that first viewing, but I couldn't attend. And I remember exactly the reason why.
Of
which
course you do.
No, but it's kind of like, I think everyone at this table is going to be amused by this for reasons that will become clear. It was because at that time I was still teaching lessons in people's homes. And in order to arrive to that screening on time, I would have had to show up with my guitar, which I thought was not a good idea in a movie theater for taking up too much space. I had not yet been to Metrograph by that time, but having been there many times since, I can confirm that was a wise move.
Really?
Not really good space.
Conscientious of you.
Yes.
I mean, I would say conscientious, but like when you were at that screening, was it like packed?
I think it was.
It was. Okay.
I don't remember exactly.
Yeah.
I remember me and my friend were there. I don't remember a single other person there because
fine,
I was just hooked on the screen.
This is that kind of movie. Yeah.
What?
The whole world around
That's
you
right,
disappears. Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Best way to be in a theater.
Yeah,
totally.
And it's only fitting that we should talk about the theater that is so known for showing this, the Metrograph, because they have a really big hand in the present reputation that this movie has. They restored it. I mean, their company, Metrograph Pictures, restored the film. And I think it was probably, if I'm correct about the timing, I think around the time that you first saw it, Sylvie, it was new in restoration.
I think so.
Yeah. And so then I knew your impression at that time, and I carried that with me for about a year and a half before I had my first viewing of it, also at Metrograph, fittingly. And it was the kind of thing, I know they played it frequently, so I just was looking for a good time. And then once I found it, I didn't read much about it beforehand. I just submitted myself to the experience of that movie. And I remember texting you, Sylvie, immediately after I got out, just thinking, you know that feeling you get when you've seen something and you don't have any idea how to talk about it, but you know it was brilliant? I've got that feeling right now.
Totally. Yeah, I see that. I think I saw this around the time Sylvie did, I would assume. This was one that Dougie saw that Metrograph was playing it and I think was familiar with the film. I was not familiar with it at all. So we went together. So I also saw this at Metrograph.
Yeah.
And if anybody listening that's in New York or Emilio, if you want to see this in a theater, they do play it quite often.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually wanted to, but this weekend, as I've explained before, coming on mics, I've had an absolutely bonkers week, and I would have loved to have seen this in theaters. It actually showed on Sunday there, but I was on a gig, so but duly noted. One of these days, maybe I'll do
it's
that.
very easy to find a screening of this movie now, which for many years it was very difficult.
Yeah. This was a movie that reveled in obscurity for a long time, unfairly. I think that it was really subjected to a lot of censorship when it came out in the early 1980s. It was not without its fans, and it actually, when it premiered at the Cannes Film Festival, it received some pretty significant awards.
Yeah, Isabelle Adjani won Best Actress, I believe.
That's right, and I think that it was maybe nominated for the Palme d'Or. Yeah, it was nominated for the Palme d'Or. Isabelle Adjani also won Best Actress at the César Awards, which are the French Oscars, and a couple other festivals as well. So this, it was not without its accolades at the time.
Yeah.
But then it was just such a transgressive picture to so many people in various countries that it was banned in the UK. And I don't think it was completely banned in the US, but it was significantly edited.
Yeah.
In the US, cut down to about 2/3 of its intended length.
2/3. Wow, that's pretty big.
And made more, like, emphasizing more of the horror aspects of it than the romance, the fraught love story aspects.
Kind of trying to like sell it more as like a schlock jump scare kind of a film.
Yeah.
Or something.
Creature feature.
Yeah.
Really hard to do with that material.
Yeah, I know. Come to think of it, that's pretty tough.
If you've seen the movie, those aren't unfitting terms for it, but they also are reductive.
Yeah.
If you're only going to describe it as that.
Yeah, that's true.
And so, it kind of like it circulated in horror movie circuits for a while, but I read somewhere on the Wikipedia that there was a critic who said it would have done much better if it had deservingly been placed in the art house circuit.
Yeah,
at
definitely.
the time.
What did you think of this movie, Madeline, when you first saw it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that as Julian said, just kind of having no idea how to process, I think, is my initial reaction. I mentioned this to Julian yesterday. I remember my screening being very cold. It's just very cold in the theater. This has not been an issue I've run into at Metrograph since then, but I think this is the first time I had ever been to Metrograph in person. I had received like a Metrograph at home subscription during COVID. So I was watching a lot of their stuff at that point. But But this was the first time I went to the theater, and I was like, I don't know if I like this theater. It is very cold in here. But as uncomfortable as that was, I feel like it kind of adds to the experience.
Oh, yeah. It's a pretty frigid film.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is a movie that makes you emotionally very uncomfortable. So being physically uncomfortable kind of worked, I think, for me and helped me enjoy
In heavy air quotes.
the movie even more. So I don't know that I had ever seen anything like this, because I don't, as you said, Julian, this is a very singular film. There aren't a lot of other films that I think make me feel the way that this movie makes me feel.
Yeah.
Feels about right.
There are a lot of films that I've seen that do put me in that headspace of thinking, I'm not quite sure how to talk about this, but I know I liked it.
Yeah.
I think, that for, my first time watching many of David Lynch's films.
I knew that's what you were going to say.
Not only that, though, but like I remember when we talked Inherent Vice, Emilio, you said that about Punch Drunk Love.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of the feeling after watching that movie, too, which I agree with.
I actually, it's so funny. They're such different movies.
Yeah.
It might have been clear already from what we said before, but I am the newcomer to this film.
Yeah.
And I would say even though Punch Drunk Love and Possession, I think couldn't be any more different in many, many ways, I actually think I left both viewing experiences of these films feeling very similar. Very, very similar.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I get that, though. I think there's something to be said for both these films about sort of the inversion of genre.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Whereas Punch Drunk Love, you take the rom-com and you make every little piece of it weirder and not right.
Yeah, like just mine all the neuroses.
Yes. And then here you take what seems to be a relationship falling apart or spy movie. And
I love the fact that he's a spy.
Yeah.
Because it's not really relevant to most of the movie.
Yeah.
I don't know, though.
It is.
I think
it's
it's
extremely relevant
as
in a weird way.
As a motif, maybe more than a plot device.
That was my point. Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate you.
Of course, yeah. And just quick before we get into discussing the movie more candidly, I mean, Sylvie, you mentioned briefly that like after seeing it at Metrograph that first time, that this is a movie that just like is exactly your thing. And do you want to say a little bit about what your thing is?
Thank you. I think I am very drawn to movies that I do not know what's going to happen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which, not in like
Totally.
a spoiler term. I think spoilers can be reductive, and if there's one spoiler in a movie, that's boring.
Mhm.
I want a movie that I know nothing about or little about, or what I know about the movie does not tell me what's going to happen.
Right.
So, this movie, Julie Ducournau's Titan, one of my favorite movies of all time.
Mm-hmm.
Climax even.
Yeah.
And it's not just New French Extremity or extreme weird movies. It's just something that, like, Vera Chidilova's Daisies or something
Yeah.
where
That's a
you
really
don't
good
know
one,
what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
And that, like, especially if I'm in the theater, I can be not only surprised, but taken for a ride. And I don't know what emotion or genre or what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I'm with you, Sylvie. I love when a movie starts and you're like, okay, I have an idea maybe of what's going to happen,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
then it takes on
Just
totally
pivots,
different
yeah.
dimensions.
Yeah.
And you are suddenly like having to figure out like how you're supposed to process it. And that the act of figuring it out just brings you to this place where you're like appreciating so much about the movie in a way that you would never do if you felt like you had a much better sense of what the movie would be coming into it.
You said it perfectly. It's like a movie that while you're watching it, you have to try to figure out. And sometimes that mirrors what the characters are doing.
Well, should we say a little bit about what's happening in Possession?
Sure. Good
I'm
luck.
gonna try.
Yeah.
Go for
Yeah.
it.
All right. Well, I tried to make this as clear as possible. Let's see how I do. So in West Berlin in the early 1980s, an international spy who we know simply as Mark returns home from an extended work trip to the abrupt revelation that his wife, Anna, is dissatisfied with their relationship and wants a divorce. Incredulous, Mark takes a leave of absence from his work to try and sort things out, but his manipulative and violent attempts to understand Anna's seemingly erratic behavior exacerbate the rift between them. Amidst the conflict of caring for their son, Bob, Mark descends into a depression before meeting Bob's schoolteacher, Helen, who looks mysteriously similar to Anna, and then tracking down Anna's extramarital lover, a swooning intellectual named Heinrich, with whom he has a physical confrontation. As things have become similarly fraught between Mark and Anna, Mark resolves to hire a team of private investigators to follow Anna around. And when one member of this team follows through, he finds himself trapped in an apartment flanking the Berlin Wall, face to face with a mysterious, inhuman creature that Anna has been keeping in the apartment. As the plot progresses, so do attempts at surveillance, adultery, and attempts at rekindlement between Anna and Mark, and the growth of the creature into something a little more familiar in form.
All right.
I think that's pretty good. Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah.
Very good.
You definitely explained this film in a way that gave more detail than I came into the movie with.
Yeah.
I came in so cold on this that when in the opening credits it says creature design or effects, I was like, wait, there's a creature in this movie? Like, I had no idea.
And that Carlo Rambaldi designed it.
Yes, he of E.T. fame.
Yeah.
And this is 1 year before E.T. And 2 years after, he also helped out with Alien.
What a flip, having to do such films with such different frequencies,
But I think even someone, if they're for some reason listening to this having not seen the film and have heard your synopsis, I still think what you were saying, Sylvie, still stands. Like, you can have somebody tell you the entire plot of this movie, but I still think that your actual viewing experience will not be affected really at all. I do recommend going into this cold. If you've gotten this far and haven't seen the film, I would personally recommend to shut off the pod and watch the movie and then come back. But if you insist on listening, I still think you will have that feeling of never knowing what's coming.
Yeah, and not going into it cold in the sense that you did at Metrograph.
Yeah, exactly.
As I said also, I'm the newcomer to this movie, and while I am still very much processing my first watch, I thought that this was an oddly watchable film. And take that word and its definition as you may. But I know that there are things that I missed. This movie is so chock full of details and little scenes that, happen in a blink of an eye. And I can imagine that there's going to be a lot more I'm going to get from a rewatch or even from this conversation. But I wanted to ask you guys if you can remember, what was the thing on your first watch, or maybe one of the first watches that you had of this film, that was most striking to you, that maybe brought you into the world of this film?
I am such a sucker for practical effects.
Oh yes,
and for weird creatures.
Oh, cool.
It's and even though this is the thing in this, you don't see many long shots of.
You really don't.
Why I liked that is it's just enough for your brain to think, what is that?
Yeah,
I am confused. And it doesn't stay on it long enough for you to make sense of it any of the times.
And the fact that it's different every time.
That's a very good point. Yeah.
And not quite resembling anything else.
The other evolutions.
Yes.
Yeah. And the creature also doesn't appear until like 45 minutes into the movie.
Yeah.
So there's a whole story that's going on before you even realize that you could even call this. I think there's some things that would lend themselves to body horror beforehand, but this is where it really becomes, in maybe the most salient way, body horror.
Yeah, because we talked about how this is very much like a divorce movie. It's obviously called Possession. It has this horror, just like aura from the very beginning, but you don't know that it's going to go in this kind of direction. I do think it really shocks you when the creature is revealed, because I think your expectation going and being like, this is a horror movie called Possession, she's acting really weird, she must be possessed. The direction that it goes in is so different.
Yeah.
Right. Like maybe possessed by the new agey guy.
Heinrich.
There are
Heinrich,
lines he says and lines that other people say that directly allude to it.
Okay.
I've written a bunch of them down. Some of it is more possession in terms of like possessing someone else.
Right.
So I think of possession in terms of material, but also the entitlement to someone else in a relationship.
Yeah.
Specifically, but you can broaden that to society. But there's something that Heinrich says when he goes to the apartment. He says, I'm the only one in your life who has rights on you because I don't claim any.
Right.
To Anna.
Yeah.
And which is pretty dark and messed up to say.
Oh,
but
definitely.
Yeah.
He says a lot of weird stuff.
Oh, yeah. He the books that he has given her are like tantra books and like, very.
Definitely. This guy likes to get freaky.
Oh, totally.
Yeah. As if his motions in any scene aren't enough of an indicator of
That's
that.
a good point. When he first meets Mark, he is so touchy-feely. I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
I love
really, it. What is this guy's deal? I also love how much they circle each other.
Yeah.
That is something that happens over and over
very
throughout
animalistic.
The film. Definitely.
One interesting detail I noted from that scene where they first meet Mark and Heinrich is that there's a point where like some blows have been exchanged between them, and then Mark is starting to hold Heinrich in a chokehold while Heinrich doesn't really seem fazed by it. He's kind of just like about to rub his face or something like that, kind of doing his Heinrich thing.
That's why I like their fight so much, is because they're so like mismatched.
Yeah,
they really are.
I think that is a pretty indicative character moment for Mark, though, especially at that point in the movie, because when he, when in his initial processing of this revelation from Anna that she wants a divorce, I mean, he does not take it well, to say the least. But he is he falls into this depression. He's off in some hotel for 3 weeks. He's prone to physical violence at this point in the story too. So that, this idea that he's about to choke Heinrich for that moment is, I think, underscoring this sense of what you said, Sylvie, about the idea of possession as like property.
Yeah. But between Heinrich and Mark, the multiple scuffles they get in, I sort of noticed that I want us to remember that Mark is a spy.
He's
a smooth
international
operator.
Spy.
Yeah.
International man of mystery. But there's other things he does in the apartment later, in a bathroom later, that he does so casually that say, oh, this is a man used to weird intrigue. So when Heinrich bests him, this is after he's been drinking, after he's had they say 3 weeks of his
like
binge.
a bender. Yeah.
And he comes back, and shortly thereafter, I believe, is when him and Heinrich fight.
Right.
He is a mess. When they fight later, and he, spoiler, bests Heinrich.
Yeah.
Heinrich has been stabbed recently, has lost a lot of blood. And is
he's extremely impaired at this point. Mark has an up.
And through trickery is how he gets him.
There's a middle scene with them, isn't there?
Yeah.
Yes.
Where that's the one I really remember, the circling.
Yeah.
Right in front of the doorway.
Mm-hmm.
And he puts his hand in front of the door and keeps him there. And it's that's the one where he starts to, Mark feels like he can assert himself with him.
Yeah.
And he's like, I was scared of you before, and now not so much.
Well, that's right when Mark has learned that there is another apartment, 87 Sebastianstrasse.
Yes.
It exists there that Anna is going to without Heinrich.
Yeah.
So it's his feeling of, oh, I may not possess her, but Heinrich definitely does not possess her.
Yeah, we're in the same boat here.
Yes.
You and I. We're on the same level.
She's playing us both in some ways.
Yeah, and I think that this scene also, because in the first scene when Heinrich bests him, it's such a humiliation for Mark, who, again, is an international spy and is used to having the power. And I think rarely loses a fight. I think he's probably not in that many, because as a spy, it's not like
you don't want to reveal yourself.
Exactly.
It's about intrigue.
Exactly.
Tricking.
But the fact that Heinrich bests him so easily is like a huge humiliation.
Mm-hmm.
So when in the next scene that you're referring to, he's able to kind of take that power back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then in that middle scene with Heinrich and Mark, I mean, that also contains I think a really powerful interaction between them that sort of points to one of the other possible interpretations of the title, possession, which is just the sense of being possessed by forces beyond the human, not in the demonic sense that many other movies interpret it, but just of something divine, perhaps. And I forget exactly the exchange that leads to it, but Heinrich says something about, there is nothing to fear except God, whatever that means to you. To which Mark says,
I love that line.
For me, God is a disease. And to which Heinrich responds, that is why through the disease we can reach God.
Yeah.
You said it pretty much exactly. I have it written down here.
I wrote it down too.
There we go. Yeah, no, interesting stuff. And I feel like Heinrich is the character that kind of pushes a lot of this along.
Yeah.
Like it kind of goes from something that feels very insular for Mark.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And Heinrich not only because he is like a target, as you said, like he's his foil in this whole thing, but is also this guy who it seems like he's the conduit for taking this movie into this next place where other themes can start to get explored.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I love that you point out that he's Mark's foil because, I mean, you guys correct me if I'm wrong, particularly Sylvie, because you've seen this so many times, but Heinrich and Anna don't have any face-to-face scenes together, right?
They have one.
They have one.
Yeah.
Okay.
At the apartment that Anna's squatting in.
Exactly.
But you also see them together in the video.
That's
in
true.
The film.
In the film, okay.
So in the film that Heinrich, when he goes to see her in the ballet studio, because Heinrich is the one
with the camera.
You also see some things he's written her. You see Heinrich's handwriting more than anyone else in this movie, actually.
You see his postcard at the very beginning. That's how Mark learns of the affair. When Mark, like, this has been going on for some time. Yeah. Like, Anna admits that to,
like a year,
to Mark. We don't see any of that. The courting and the sneaking around behind Mark's back.
I got you.
Like, by the time the affair is introduced, we haven't seen any of it. We're learning about it at the same time that Mark is.
Yeah.
And most of Heinrich's scenes are with Mark, which I find really interesting.
Right.
And then, well, actually going back to Emilio, your question about like what stuck with you the first time. So in this movie, I've noticed there's a lot of interactions that, as philosophical as the movie is, there are a lot of interactions that result in these very curt yes or no answers. And I'm going to answer your question with something very direct, which is that scene in the subway station.
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously, I think is what has stuck with me over the last several years.
Yeah. And I think the first time one watches this film, that is the scene that will stick with you the most. Interestingly, in like the first time I watched it in the theater, that scene, which happens around like 75 minutes into the 2-hour runtime, Isabelle Adjani's character, Anna, experiences what appears to be this big seizure. Some people might quibble on what exactly it is.
It feels like the closest the movie gets to actually externalizing a possession.
Yes, and she experiences it in the middle of an empty tunnel in the U-bahn, which is Berlin's subway. And she has this grocery bag with her. She's throwing things around from it. And then she kind of mysteriously bleeds or oozes something out of
from the back of her neck, it seems.
I was like, is it her ears? I couldn't quite tell.
I was scared for her head. Because she kept throwing it really close to the subway walls. I was like, I definitely thought I saw like 2 or 3 incidences where she straight up made contact with that wall. Like full commit. This scene is very intense.
I think that they said that this is just 2 takes.
Yes.
I was surprised, like rewatching it. I'm watching this scene and I'm like, is this a single take? Because it just seems like a scene that takes so much out of a person. And she gets quite messy also. So I'm like, how could they possibly do multiple takes of this? I think they said there are 2.
That makes sense.
And they mostly use the first one.
It's like the Beatles' Twist and Shout was also that.
Very similar to the Beatles.
Very similar.
I was thinking that as I saw it the first time.
Thank you.
And also, they had to film that scene at 5 a.m. to get an empty
the subway
tunnel.
Closed.
Right. But that scene, I think, when the first time you watch it, it feels like it takes forever to get through it. Interestingly, on rewatch, that scene has felt much quicker. Maybe just because I know what's going to happen, but also because, my attention, especially because we're discussing it for the podcast, has been devoted more so to interpreting other things that maybe I didn't get the first time. And, watching that scene, I mean, I think I said something similar when we discussed Whiplash. It feels a little odd to be desensitized to some scenes in both of those movies, but here we are.
How about you, Madeline? What was there something?
It was that 100%. I mean, that's the thing that sticks with you. I think over time.
And I think that after that's happened, it's like kind of put the viewer in this state of heightened awareness that, for me at least, it made it easier for me to track a lot of what happened after that scene than before. I think that what happens before, there's a lot of notable things that stick with the viewer, but because it's so philosophical and there's all these different things going on, it's a little harder to remember it beat for beat in the way that it is, I think, following that train meltdown scene.
No, I think it's a good way of putting it. It's like so much of what is happening abstractly becomes physicalized.
Oh, yeah.
And if you're dozing off at any point before this scene, you are wide awake.
Exactly.
Emilio, do you have any guesses as to what may stick with you?
You know, we just got done talking about the films of Owen Roizman. I think this is a movie that has really striking cinematography.
It does.
Yes.
There is a mood to this movie right away.
Yeah.
The camera movement seems like it wants to get you close to a character, but not really. Sometimes it gave me like Shining vibes.
Yeah,
like the
definitely.
first time,
totally.
the first time he goes and meets with Mr. Zimmerman, there's this thing where the camera pulls in and then pulls back. It's like it doesn't want to orient you in any way, shape, or form where he is. So that to me was very, very striking. And also just like from a visual perspective, the lack of color, I think, kind of in a way drew me in. There's a drained visual color palette through most of the movie that I think I don't know if it just speaks to some like darkness in me, but I'm like kind of into it. I don't know. I'm like, I think it looks really cool. So
yeah. And for me, like watching it the first, but really each time that I've seen it, I mean, at first the dreary color palette of it strikes me as appropriately scene setting because this is 1981 Berlin. There's a lot of brutalist architecture around. The wall is still up and you see it in the film. And, you know, the abundance of gray. I mean, some of it really feels by design, especially in Mark and Anna's apartment in the early scenes of the movie. That really feels like, you know, cinematography, set decoration stuff. But some of it is just the stark reality of Berlin in 1981.
Yeah.
You know what, though? Honestly, that, like, coming into this movie, I did not know where it was set. Like, that was like the 20th detail that I caught on. I felt like there was so much happening between these characters that, like, where they were took a long time to register. In fact, for a long time, I thought the people that were kind of seemed like they were looking into his apartment.
Yeah.
Because I knew it was like spy related. I thought that it was like some type of surveillance from people that Mark was working with, that they were kind of surveilling him.
I think I had the same impression when I first watched it, or that it had something to do with who he hired to follow her.
Right.
What were you going to say?
I loved those because I don't know this for sure, but those are just people working at the wall on the other side.
Exactly.
And of course they're looking because they're pointing a camera at them.
Right.
Yeah.
And I love it. And there's I think about 3 times they have those shots in the movie.
Yeah.
And each time it sort of adds to this paranoia
Exactly.
that
Oh, absolutely.
you have to
Totally.
feel in Berlin in the Cold War in a spy movie, but also a paranoia you feel when you're being cheated on.
Yeah.
And in
that's
and in so many other things.
Dude, Sylvie, you just blew my mind. That is really cool.
I think that's why the spy thing is also not the only reason it's important,
Right.
but especially because it adds another like broader professional political paranoia
Okay.
into his everyday life.
Sure.
And I mean, talking a little bit more about films set in Berlin around this time, I mean, I have to think as a counterpoint immediately of Wings of Desire.
Oh, yeah.
The
It's a
Wim
great
Wenders film from about 6 years later, which is a great movie that also, interestingly, it depicts the wall, but it's a replica in that movie because at that time it was illegal to show the Berlin Wall in film. Which, I mean, in the case of Possession, I don't know if it was illegal yet by that point or if it was and they just got away with it.
Yeah.
Żuławski ruined it for the rest of us.
But also, while we're talking about visual details, that Wings of Desire is notable for its use of color because that is a movie with some sections that are very distinctly black and white as opposed to full color.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you know, I don't think it's spoiling much to say that Wings of Desire is a much more hopeful, optimistic movie.
Totally.
Than
I don't
Possession
know.
is. We can
We
debate that.
can quibble on that. Yeah.
Yeah. I think, but there's a redemptive quality to that is not present in Possession. But yeah, continuing about like some of the visual cues of the movie. I mean, I think we've talked about the grayness of it all, but blue is a significant color in this movie too. And I mean, you know, sometimes directors will very intentionally ascribe meaning to colors. I come and go with that sometimes, or I feel like directors come and go with that. Sometimes they have an exact meaning in mind. Other times they don't know exactly what it is. They just kind of like how it looks, and there's a meaning that comes from that. But blue, I mean, I think most notably it comes up in the shades of the dresses that Isabelle Adjani wears throughout the movie.
Yeah, the costuming is really fascinating in this.
Yeah.
It's they color code all the characters.
Yeah.
Blue comes up a lot with her. I mean, you see it in the interiors of the apartments as well. And I think that, I don't know if there's a meaning to it exactly other than just kind of going along with the character, but what do you all think? Do you feel like there's a meaning to all the blue in this story?
I don't know if there's a meaning, but I think it is visually distinct.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That, a lot of the environment is more faded.
Yeah.
And then you get Isabelle Adjani in the dark blue dress,
Yeah.
which I want to note it as a point of contrast
Mhm.
with Isabelle Adjani's other role in this.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
a good point.
Helen,
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
white.
always wears all white.
And then
Who-
has the green eyes.
Yes,
Mhm.
green eyes, brown hair, braided back,
Mm-hmm.
and she always wears white. And Anna always wears blue.
Right.
And so it sort of serves as a way to visually contrast
Differentiate.
them and tell you
Yeah.
who is
Yeah.
in a scene.
Yeah.
I mean, their behavior is completely different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a great point.
when Mark first sees Helen,
Yeah.
he literally says, because he takes Bob to school. He's like,
Yeah.
"Is this a joke?"
Yeah.
He's like, and she's like, "Oh, what?" He's like, "But you've seen my wife, haven't you?"
Yeah.
And she,
Yeah.
instead of interpreting it as like, "Oh, we look the same," she's like, "Oh yeah, she comes here all the time."
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that that's the direction that they go. That she is, for some reason, completely ignoring the fact that she looks like a twin sister to this man's wife.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious as to why you think that is.
Oh, I think it's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I love that they do it.
I think so. I don't know why she does. I like that she responds matter of factly.
Yeah,
because it adds to
totally.
the paranoia and the
Of Mark.
oh my
Of Mark,
god, am I seeing my wife everywhere?
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
But-
I think also the end of the film, not to like
Yes.
go there quite. Yeah, we can drop it. But I think the end of the film, I think, makes it pretty clear why there might be a motivation to not lead on.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also that, like, I think some critics interpret this doppelganger character, Helen, as a projection. I don't personally interpret that.
Like as if the character in reality does not look exactly like Anna.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which
Oh,
I don't
interesting.
And
I don't
that
personally
we're seeing her as Mark sees her.
Yeah, I personally side with, that this is the reality of the movie, but whatever side you land on that, something that I think is less ambiguously true is that there is this theme of like oscillating between the harsh realities of one's relationship and the idealizations of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so then, by the time Helen comes into the picture, she comes to embody Mark's idealization of what he wants from his relationship
Yes.
with Anna.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yes.
And so then her like really taking this bizarre question that he asks in total stride, I think is part of that.
Yeah. I also find it interesting that Bob seems to also not clock that his teacher and his mother look the same.
Yeah.
But that's
He's like, Daddy, who's prettier? And it's like, they are the same person.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he answers very like politically.
Yeah.
But I think that's also almost something that makes sense for like a
For like a
4 or 5 year old
6-year-old
child.
Yeah. How old's this
like,
child, Amelia?
I
did
want
you
to say
ever
he's a little older. I want to say he's
But
like 8 or 9.
6.
Did you never, as like under 10 years old, accidentally call a teacher mom?
Oh, yeah. I mean,
I've been there.
Yeah, I don't know if I did, but
I don't know if I did, but that's definitely a thing. I may
Yeah.
have done it. I definitely heard other kids do it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I do want to point out that it's also, again, what Julian was saying too, that she is more of an, scare quotes, like ideal wife sort of
Right.
figure.
Yeah.
Because she isn't manically going around doing
Yeah.
crazy things.
Right.
She's not causing scenes in the subway.
And she still
But-
looks like Isabelle Adjani.
Yeah.
So
and she helps with the son. But
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
she comes to his apartment the first time, without even saying anything, she immediately she goes in, she says
Assumes
hi
the
to Bob.
roles, yeah.
She starts bathing Bob
Yeah.
while
Yeah.
Mark has to go out.
Very
and then
familiar.
she starts washing the dishes like it's normal.
Have you guys seen The Brood?
No, I'd love to.
I have seen The
So
Brood.
did that school teacher character not just like scream The Brood to you?
I didn't think of it while watching, but now that you're saying it, yeah.
It is
Yes,
like
absolutely.
there are some really similar beats between
Yeah.
these movies, and that's one of them.
I think that, another rather salient similarity, like if you've seen The Brood, is just at least, so The Brood, it's a shorter movie. It's like a tight 90 minutes, and it's, it is more in the corner of the husband in that relationship. It's not without development for the wife character or the estranged wife, but there is this sense that like the husband is really confused at why is the estranged wife doing these strange things.
It's interesting though, because I do think, and not to get into spoiler territory, but a thing that both of those movies do is suggest strongly that there was this outside presence that is kind of new agey that comes in and sort of corrupts this person that you have a relationship with. And honestly, I mean, that's one of the things that I find very profound about this movie. This is not something that I really live in fear with, but I think when you get married, I think I'm the only one at this table who's married, but when you get married, there is this part of you that, like, when you take vows, and it's like in sickness and health, for better or for worse, you have to acknowledge that you have to be ready for your partner to change.
Yeah.
And that when they change, you might have to be the bigger person and vice versa.
Yeah.
And I think this movie and The Brood get at this in a really fascinating way where it's like hard reality, boom, your partner has changed.
Yeah.
What are you going to do about it?
And this film touches on that from the very beginning, because before you find out about Heinrich or about the creature, when Mark first returns home and it's very clear that their relationship is not in a good place and she wants to split up. At this point, she's just she's not being honest with him. She's not telling him about Heinrich or about all this other stuff. And she, I mean, she's basically just saying, like, you know, this happens, like, people grow apart. It was good while it lasted, but like we have become different people.
Right.
The vows seemingly were not enough for the two of them.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. No.
And it's, I mean, the other thing that I find kind of interesting too about this movie is, you know, it comes out at a time, and we talked a little bit about Hester Street.
Yeah.
How that film has a really pivotal scene that centers around divorce.
Yeah.
For the characters, and how I think not necessarily that movie set off a wave of other films to address divorce, but I think, you know, it was clued into this time, which is the 70s was the rise of the no fault divorce, right? And so all of a sudden, you know, it's tapping into I think a very real fear. I think that's another thing that I think is kind of interesting about Possession is, like, I feel like this movie would not have been very popular in the 90s. I think, like, aesthetically and what people were looking for in horror movies has kind of like went in this very different direction. But I think now a movie like Possession feels very much in conversation with, like, the films of, like, Ari Aster.
First person I thought of.
And
totally.
like, and that, like, now I look at this and I'm like, oh, like, this is like your current favorite horror director's, like, favorite horror movie.
Yeah.
You know,
especially because, like, a lot of Ari Aster's movies, I think all of them so far are like some kind of allegory, like, on the nose, are not about family trauma.
About like things that we all live with. I think that the most effective and the most lasting horror films are the ones that tap into that.
Yeah. And it's, you know, whether it be any of those or Rosemary's Baby or The Exorcist or things like that. Before we transition completely away from the visuals of the film, there's one last thing that I personally want to point out there, that there are these, we've said a bit about it already, the very dynamic camera movements that happen throughout this movie. And I think in particular, there's a lot of shots, you know, where, like, a lot happens in a single take, but there's also a lot where the camera is moving in a circle around the character. I think the first time it happens is when Mark is having his meeting with his employers, where he's basically saying he wants to take a leave of absence from his spy work. But then there are later points too, like I think of when he finds the apartment that Anna has been squatting in and sees that there are body parts in the fridge. The camera circles around him again there. My personal interpretation of some of it is that it kind of, especially when you consider Mark's background as an international spy, that there is, like, some of this, it's, you know, evoking some of this culture of surveillance that exists at that time, especially when you see it going all the way around his meeting there, that, you know, there's this, you know, illusion of, or this, you know, attempt at achieving a kind of all-knowingness, but also that when you see him having this really twisted eureka moment in that apartment, that it kind of conveys the mania that the characters are experiencing too.
Totally.
That's my personal interpretation, but are there any other thoughts on those movements?
I think you nailed it. I mean, at least from a perspective of, like, my first viewing, I think it's meant to be very immersive. I think it's meant to disorient you, but also externalize some of the internal stuff. I think that's a lot of what I felt was happening in this movie. Even the acting, I felt was like very broad.
Definitely.
Yeah.
In a lot of moments where you're like, okay. And to me, it feels like a decision to have these characters act not how people would normally act, but how they feel.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like that kind of acting doesn't happen that often, at least in more modern films. I feel like that's more, by that description, something more of like an older era. But this is a movie that I think really unites that description well with something that feels contemporary to its time. Are we ready to officially get into our comparison corner?
I think we're ready to get into it.
Yeah, I think we stepped into it a little bit already.
Yeah,
we've been slowly.
We've set it up amply.
Like a big toe.
Comparing.
Going in, yeah.
I mean, I think The Brood was really the ushering in of that.
Definitely.
Yes.
But does anyone have a comparison that they want to kick it off with?
Yeah, I have one that jumped out to me. Has anybody here seen the movie Demon Seed?
No.
That is a Japanese movie, right?
No.
Demon Pond.
Yeah,
That's
no.
the
This movie, I think it might have been a UK film. I'm not totally sure. I actually should know more about the progeny of this film than I do, but I saw this one. It was on the Criterion Channel, and I kind of put it on just as like out of curiosity. I gotta say, this movie kind of sucked me in. There are some aspects of it that are like a little weird, but this is another movie from that like late 70s. And the other thing that it has, I think, is it's kind of banking on this classic cinema like siren look. Isabelle Adjani like has a super striking like face. Like she just looks like somebody that you want to trust. You know, that like a movie would normally ask you to fall in love with this character.
Yeah.
And Demon Seed also has an actress who famously was put out to the world in this way, which is Julie Christie. And I don't think it's ruining it to say, but both of these films deal with the idea of a double. It is unsettling and it is really weird.
Whoa.
But it gets at a lot of the similar ideas. And what I'll say is the ending of this movie kind of like knocked me out. And in a way, it's very similar to what goes on with Possession. But it's cool. It's like, I would recommend it.
Cool. Well, I'd like to bring up one other very well-known movie that you mentioned briefly before. So I don't know if you call it a coincidence, but one of the great sort of unintentional series of films that I like to point out that Possession is a part of. So 1979, you get The Brood. 1981, you get Possession. 1980, right in the middle, you get The Shining.
Yeah.
Yeah, all our movies, horror movies about dissolution of a marriage and how it affects the children involved.
Yeah. I was also going to piggyback off of your mention of The Shining earlier. And for me, I think it's because of just Shelley Duvall's very broad performance and that just these two women who play very different characters, obviously, and your sympathies are certainly way more Shelley Duvall's character in The Shining than you're meant to be with Anna through at least most of Possession. But I think just the way that they each have to just lay it all out on the table.
Yeah, that's true. Very committed performances.
Yeah, it's a great point. And also that there is, well, in The Shining and Possession specifically, there's one child in the middle of it all.
Yeah.
Who looks pretty similar at that.
Typical color hair.
Yeah.
That's true.
Danny in The Shining gets more screen time than Bob in Possession. But, you know, I'm thinking constantly throughout watching both movies of like, how is the kid being affected by all of this?
Oh my God.
Yeah. And I'm not even a parent yet. So
this is a very hard movie to watch. In fact, I started to ask myself a lot. I'm like, does this director have a kid himself?
Yeah.
And he does.
He does. And he went through a divorce a little before this.
That's how he's able to tap into it, I think, and make it as messed up as possible because he knows what will get to people. There we go.
Yeah. And while we're on the topic of kids being in the middle of it, another comparison that I have to think of while watching Possession to another, it's not an Ari Aster film, but another more recent film from a well-regarded auteur is The Killing of a Sacred Deer.
Yeah.
Ooh.
I can see that.
Yes. The Yorgos Lanthimos film, which is, I mean, that movie is well known to be based on a Greek tragedy, but it's set in what are ostensibly modern times. And it's also about a situation that is kind of setting up the dissolution of a family by somewhat supernatural means.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And also I don't know, I haven't read into the making of that movie to know whether Yorgos Lanthimos and his co-writer Efthymis Philippou were consciously thinking of possession while watching it. But one detail that makes me strongly suspect that they were is that the son of that family in The Killing of a Sacred Deer is named Bob.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting.
Ooh.
Yeah. So I immediately thought of that, even as early as the first time watching Possession.
Very nice.
Yeah.
I like that. I have this is a bit of a strained comparison corner.
That's
Okay.
But I think it's fun. And it's a movie that is not nearly as good in any way. Did any of you guys see the movie Splice?
No,
Is that
I
a,
haven't.
You don't
is that
need
a
to.
Steven Soderbergh movie?
I don't remember. It's Adrian Brody.
Okay.
It is not worth it. But it does involve two scientists splicing genes and creating this like weird creature that becomes their child. And one of them ends up like having a relationship with.
Wow. Okay.
So in the terms of like sort of monster creature sex,
Yeah.
messed up family dynamics, kind of uncomfortable stuff. But that's more of like a monster, like I don't know if it's a monster flick exactly.
Yeah.
It got a lot of press for being smutty at the time.
Got it. Okay.
And it's not even that good. But that's a very distant.
That's okay. These movies don't have to be good to make it to comparison corner.
Totally.
Yeah, the Soderbergh movie I was thinking of was Side Effects.
Oh, yeah, very
this
different.
is
Yeah.
Splice is directed by Vincenzo Natali, stars, as you said, Adrian Brody and Sarah Polley from 2009.
Sylvie, you would, for not to be confused with, mention Marriage Story. I mean,
Yes.
one of the things that I find interesting about this movie is that it is kind of two different genres.
Mhm.
And one of those is this like kind of traditional family drama in a lot of ways. Like this is not a universal experience, but an extremely common experience of like a couple with a young child who have grown apart, one or both have become unfaithful, and how that affects the child. Like we've talked about these themes already. And so I do think it's really interesting to think about, more traditional narrative films with this general plot, like Marriage Story or Scenes from a Marriage or Kramer vs. Kramer. I think that's interesting to think about because this movie takes those, many of those, or all of those come after this, right?
No, Kramer
vs.
Kramer vs. Kramer would be
Came
the first
before.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah, this movie feels very much in
Oh.
conversation with Kramer versus Kramer.
Yeah.
Big time.
Yeah.
In a very similar way. I love that you brought that up. In a very similar way, it's kind of like one of the Indiana Jones movies, Temple of Doom,
Right,
which
right.
Yeah.
Spielberg wrote after his divorce.
Right.
And
Yes.
you kind of have a son figure in there, but
Yeah,
like
yeah.
every single line between the main characters, you're like, oh, this man went through a divorce. And
Yeah,
this is how he's
totally.
this is how he's getting it out.
Right.
But in
Yeah.
a much more, instead of the traditional sort of marriage story way or this bizarro way, it's through an adventure story.
Yeah.
Mm,
And then
yeah.
Steven Spielberg marries that actress.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Kate Hampton.
Yep.
And he's been very upfront about how being a father really changed him. Like he has said, light spoiler by the way for Close Encounters of the Third Kind. He has gone on record that he's like, if I was a parent having made Close Encounters, he would have ended the movie very differently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because he was, I think, at the time of Close Encounters, he was still dealing with his own parents' divorce
Right.
and like his
Yeah.
own relationship with his father,
Right.
who was a little bit more absent later in his childhood and
Right.
young adulthood.
And not
Yeah.
thinking about how he might be as a father.
Yeah.
And
Or
I
how
was,
his characters might like reflect on how he might be as a father.
Yeah.
while we're still talking about comparisons, there's two other films that I thought of immediately due to the setup of Possession, this inciting incident of a wife saying, I want a divorce.
Mm-hmm.
And one of these comparisons, and Sylvie, you and I have talked about this off mic quite a bit. I know you have quibbles with it, but I'm going to make it anyway.
I don't know what this is going to be.
It's to another one of your all-time favorite movies, which is A Serious Man.
Oh, we
Oh,
have
good
talked
one.
about this. Yeah.
Yeah,
that's a
Iconic
very good one,
movie.
yeah.
And that's another movie that it has a
Supernatural element there.
well, what you call the inciting incident of that movie. There's a few more things that are going on there,
Yeah.
but early on, I don't think it's spoiling anything to say that the main character's wife abruptly and seemingly out of nowhere asks for a divorce in that movie.
That's
too.
true.
For someone who's touchy-feely.
Yeah.
For another man who is a
Yes.
touchier man who is the better man, it
Exactly.
seems.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that is fair.
Cy
I'll give you
Abelman,
that.
who is like, and also
Cy Abelman.
the first time watching Possession and Heinrich shows up, I'm like, it's Cy Abelman. Yeah. And if you haven't seen A Serious Man, Cy Abelman, I think I don't remember which critic, but there was a critic at the time that came out who ranked Cy Abelman as a antagonist on par with Anton Chigurh, Heath Ledger's Joker and Hans Landa from Inglourious Bastards.
Well, which one? Most of those villains
insidious.
you're not going to see day to day.
Yeah.
Cy Abelman lives in your neighborhood.
Yes.
Be careful.
Yeah.
No, that's so funny.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah.
And this is Cy Abelman is played by Fred Melamed in maybe the greatest performance of his career.
Yeah.
And it's like one of the best character actor performances I've ever seen. And also another thing about A Serious Man that I think justifies the comparison to Possession is that is a movie that is about a lot of seemingly random events and kind of questioning about the existence of a god. And, is there a meaning to any of these things, or is it just shit happening?
Yeah.
There are a lot of moments in Possession where I feel like that is a very considerable theme too. Since I set it up, the other movie that I think of that also has a similar inciting incident is a movie that on the surface very different from Possession, but I still think of it a lot while watching, which is The Banshees of Inisherin.
Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
which is not about a marriage, it's about a friendship.
About a friendship.
Yeah.
Which also, for that movie, famously begins with one friend just abruptly saying, "I just don't like you anymore." And
Yeah, that's
there is
true.
also a period of depression.
there's
experienced
depression
by both of them.
I think there's a lot of room for psychoanalysis in that movie, but also, and I actually kind of just thought of this today, but now I'm like, oh, why didn't I think of this sooner? So Possession is set in divided Berlin in 1981, and The Banshees of Inisherin is, set during the Irish Civil War.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I mean, Ireland is still a divided country. So when you consider that as a backdrop for the story, when I first heard that said about The Banshees of Inisherin, I was like, oh, why didn't I get that right away?
No, I see what you're saying. Would Barry Keoghan be the Bob in this comparison?
I think so.
Barry Keoghan, who is in The Killing of a Sacred
Exactly.
Deer.
There we go.
Not as the Bob-like character.
He's
More of the creature.
Yeah.
And one last thing, and for people who haven't seen this series, I'm not gonna say why I just thought of this, but Madeline, I know you'll know once I say it, which is that in thinking less about the entire story, but about a specific performance in Possession, when thinking about Sam Neill's performance in this movie, and it's kind of like, it has its quieter moments, but also a few moments that almost feel kind of hammy in a good way. I thought a lot of Ray Wise in Twin Peaks.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
because sometimes he has to be a lot more grounded as Leland, and then sometimes it's extremely broad.
Yeah, but I was thinking in particular of like that dinner table scene in Fire Walk with Me.
Totally.
Where there's like...
Rewatched that recently.
Yeah, I feel like he kind of touches into both sensibilities there.
Yeah, and then there's that like very dark, violent version of a character that we don't necessarily see being violent up until that point.
Yeah.
And then it persists.
Yeah.
Which is very similar, I think, to this film.
Yeah. Plus, I think just he and Sam Neill have kind of arguably some similar facial features too.
Sure.
Speaking of performances, can we spend some time talking about Isabelle Adjani in this?
Absolutely.
We'd be remiss if we didn't.
I feel like we would, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I said earlier that she, much like Shelley Duvall in The Shining, like leaves it all on the table. And she's completely unrestrained in a way that's undeniably really captivating, but also deeply disturbing. And she's spoken about how this was an incredibly traumatic like production for her, and how it took her like many years to kind of recover from the emotions that she felt and that she had to let out during this filming. So what aspects of her performance stood out to you guys the most?
Whoa.
The big question.
There is a specific thing I'm thinking of. It's a lot in her movements.
Oh, totally.
And her vocal performance is amazing. But there's a specific part where she comes back into the apartment. It's sort of in the middle, and she's moving her hands in this weird sort of spastic way.
Oh yeah,
and it makes me think of like when you'll see like Macbeth or like Lady Macbeth, like kind of how she moves her hands, how some actresses do that.
Mm-hmm.
But the way she's like, I can't remember what he's saying, but Mark is grading on her, and her hands are just moving over each other again and again and again.
Yeah.
And the repeat, and it's like
both
like a meltdown.
Yeah.
Like sort of but it is just terrifying.
Yeah.
And I felt it as a viewer being like, oh my God. And he just keeps pushing.
Yeah. I think that's the moment in the film when she feels the most possessed in the more traditional sense.
Oh.
Yeah.
That moment specifically is when he comes back to the apartment and she's there. and the apartment's a complete mess, as it is in a lot of things.
Yeah.
And she's like, I have to be here to take out
laundry or
to
something.
laundry. But she's stuffing the clothes in the fridge.
the fridge.
In the fridge,
Yeah.
if you notice that. Which
Which is a foreshadowing for what else might go in fridges later.
It is a mirroring of shortly thereafter, other things stuffed in a fridge.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that scene occurs maybe right before the setup for the scene that we've discussed with her earlier in the train station, and
because that's meant to be a flashback.
It is.
She's telling this story.
And I only caught this on third viewing, but I think I figured out roughly when that's supposed to have happened, because like after the scene where Mark goes and meets Heinrich for the first time, you see Anna in the blue dress one time before that, or maybe 2 times before that, and it's completely clean. But when you see Mark come back to the apartment and Anna is playing with Bob in the bathtub, her dress is stained.
Interesting. Because
Yeah.
I had always kind of assumed that this was like a while ago, like maybe while he was still gone. But I like this catch.
Yeah. And it's
good eye.
and it is the same dress as she wears in the train station scene.
Yes. Although I will say, in real life, not so often in movies, people do re-wear dresses.
This is true.
Quite often.
Yeah, but I think it's on camera. There's room for the interpretation.
That's true. Yeah. I like that.
On the subject of little details like that scene when Mark just starts cutting himself with that electric, very calmly. I noticed that you don't really see markings later.
In one
like
scene
he doesn't
you do.
scar from it.
I don't know. I feel like I don't remember that.
There is one scene where you do, and it's when the second time you see Helen, when she knocks on the door as Mark is bathing Bob, and she knocks on the door, and he has to step up and answer, and you see there are healing scars.
But to your point, I mean, Anna says something to him because she's, also cut herself with this.
Right.
And then after he cuts himself, she says something like, see, it doesn't hurt, or something like that, which really struck me. And I think would play into what you're saying.
Yeah.
This is also exactly right after she cuts herself, tries to cut her neck more manically. And after Mark does cuts his own self, I think around that time, Mark says, when I'm away from you, I think of you as an animal or a woman possessed.
Right.
Yeah.
Putting it out there.
Yeah.
Almost dropping the title.
Yes.
Yeah.
Quite.
Which I forgot to add earlier.
I think earlier in that same scene, there is a moment, or it's more than a moment, like that, because Mark at this point is still, and this is the second physical fight that they've had in that apartment in the first 45 minutes of the movie. So it's a lot going on already. But, Mark is still struggling to understand why Anna is behaving the way that she is. And he's asking a series of questions about like what she could want from him, to which she keeps answering no. But the one thing that she says yes to is, are you worried I won't like you? Something like that.
And then she like nods or something.
And then she starts nodding.
Yeah.
And I mean, I was listening to this podcast in preparation, which was called Gutter Studies, which was going into a Lacanian analysis of what we see in this film, suggesting that, at that point in the story, that gives a little bit of a voice to this idea that Anna as a character, is struggling with the sense that she is not fulfilling to Mark, and that it is less that her behavior is just her trying to exert her independence, and it's more that she consistently feels she is not enough for him and cannot really find a solution to that perceived problem.
Do we have any sense how long he's been away?
Not really. We know it's been at least a couple years.
Yeah.
We can assume.
I feel like anybody would feel that way.
I think we can tell just from how he behaves toward Bob, and the fact that the first scene, when he meets her at the taxi, he basically says, oh, should I just take a hotel room? And she says, no, Bob's expecting you.
Kind of reminds me of Hester Street.
Yeah.
When they come in on the boat, and I forget the name of the son in that.
Yosela.
Yosela. And she's kind of like, Yosela, don't you remember your daddy here?
Oof.
Don't, because I don't think he's seen him since he was born, basically.
I think they mentioned that he's visited a handful of times.
Okay.
It appeared to me that he has visited the apartment every so often, but that he is away for longer and it's not regular.
Yeah.
I kind of interpreted that, like, should I get a hotel, as like, there's already marital issues. That he's coming into this being like, we're not okay, and maybe there's some space that still needs to happen.
Interesting aspect of both Sam Neill and Isabelle Adjani's performances as their respective characters is that Anna and Mark have these really vicious fights throughout the movie.
Yeah.
But whenever they remember that Bob is there or he shows up, they're totally different.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I think is,
I mean,
in a lot of ways, just a real thing about parenthood.
Are they, though? I don't know.
Maybe not totally, but they're
less
less physical.
They
maybe?
put on, well, they
maybe
not so different with each other, but how they are to him.
Yeah.
They're composed.
Yeah. It really struck me like how often he would leave the room or he would have just been with them. And then it just escalates into something like horrifying.
Yeah,
something,
it's like they aren't necessarily doing this in front of his eyes, but he's like in the next room through a lot of it.
All of it.
Yeah. He knows.
Yeah.
But then going back to Isabelle Adjani's performance specifically. So if we think a little bit beyond the character of Anna, I mean, she is Helen too.
That's true.
And I mean, just in terms of technical details, I mean, it's really impressive how she is able to seemingly completely let loose with when she's playing Anna, and then just regain total composure when she's playing Helen.
Can I admit something?
Yeah.
Yes.
Do it.
The first time I saw this, not knowing anything about any of it, I did not realize both of them were Isabelle Adjani.
Really?
I completely missed that on the first thing because I didn't know her as well. And also, they just felt so different. And I was so like, then shortly thereafter, I was like, oh yeah, it's both her. But the first time I saw it, I'm like, oh yes, they're different people, different actress.
Because as you said earlier, they're styled incredibly differently. But also, I think just she is able to step so fully into each of these characters.
Yes.
They feel so distinct. I have no problem with the fact that they styled them so differently, but I don't know that they needed to go that far to distinguish the two because I think she does such a good job of doing that in her performance.
With body language, with voice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just think also, to answer your question, Madeline, she just has this face.
Yeah.
Like she has such a movie star face.
She does.
And she just has like a set of peepers that you're like, I want to feel like this character.
Yes.
Like I'm in good hands with this person.
Yeah.
She has that quality, very like femme fatale. Well, not really femme fatale. It's kind of the opposite.
Yeah.
She feels very like wholesome in some strange way. Like they're really playing off of how innocent she appears. The physicality of her performance to me is like, yes, there is like, I think a lot of talent and like craft as an actress that's definitely there, but like the genetics are like really striking.
Totally.
Yeah.
So I also wanted to ask if you guys felt as though your sympathies were shifting throughout the film. Do you feel like between the two of them, like, are you siding with one of them throughout much of the film? Do you see that going back and forth? Do you think, they're both insane and acting terrible?
I felt like it was really hard for me to bring a level of sympathy to anybody in this movie on my first watch. I'd be really curious
Bob.
for you guys.
You're like, I sympathize with Bob and
I want
Bob
the best
only.
for Bob. Please don't spend years in therapy because of this. But I would be curious for you guys because I when you asked that, I was like, it was hard for me to even bring sympathy in as like a response to anything I was watching. Yeah. Just because there is so much happening.
Yeah, I don't think sympathy is the right word for it, but I think I do feel a constant interest in what's going on with Anna throughout the movie.
Yeah.
Maybe a curiosity of like, what is going on with her, but because I have this viewerly perspective, it's not the same form that it takes with Mark. It's just kind of like, I can think of it with that remove of just like, okay, like, yeah, clearly she's behaving erratically, but what if there is something like, or like what is underlying this? Because like, I'm not shaped by Mark's perceptions of what he wants from his relationship. I mean, but to go to your question of do sympathies change at all? I don't know if it's like a full swing change, but where I do feel a little more sympathetic to Mark in the movie is kind of in the middle, which seems to be his most relaxed portion of the movie.
Yeah, once he's chilled out a little.
Yeah, after, because when Helen has come over and she and Mark have ostensibly had this tryst with each other, it seems like for a minute there he is fulfilled with his relationship desires because Helen is this alternate Anna. It seems like he kind of just wanted his old relationship back and he gets it.
Yeah, he gets a do-over.
Yeah, for a hot minute there. And then when like Heinrich shows up shortly in the midst of that going on, then he's cool with Heinrich in a way that he wasn't before. It's not completely cool, but he's cooler.
Yeah.
And so I feel like, for a minute there it looks like, oh, did Mark actually grow a bit? Good for him. And, as we see later on, no. No, he goes back to his old ways.
Well,
What do you think, Sylvie?
okay. It's hard. At the beginning, I feel their anxieties.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it gets you into their minds of just things are weird.
Yeah.
Both of them seem like terrible, terrible partners.
Yeah.
They really
They
Or at
seem
least
are.
very poorly matched.
Yeah.
I will say I get sympathetic toward both of them later.
Yeah.
Once everything starts going crazy,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a point where after Mark finds the bodies,
Mm-hmm.
after he's sent Heinrich to whatever Heinrich's gonna find, and after he finds out Heinrich has been stabbed, at first he's victorious. Then when he decides to burn down the apartment and blow it up, he's decisive, and it's almost like he's just gonna cover for his wife. And it's less that he has the possession of her; he's won. It's almost like a screw it all. Like at least
Burn it
Heinrich
all
hasn't
down.
won.
Yeah.
And then after that, he is like running interference for them. At the end, when the creature and Anna are at Zimmerman's house, the very expensive mansion in Charlottenburg, which the Wikipedia page says it's Margit's house. Wrong.
That's what I assumed, but probably just based on Wikipedia.
The cops do say, this is Zimmerman's house, right? But he literally hijacks a cab so they can escape. And he is actively just not even giving up, but just sort of giving into the madness of it.
Yeah.
And at that point, I'm like, yeah, I kind of like him.
Yeah.
Which is really funny to me.
Like chaotic Mark.
Yeah.
Well, it's by a different token. I feel like a little bit of that strange sort of sympathy when I think about Helen, because when I compare the Anna and Helen roles, I think that I'm constantly invested in what's happening with Anna, but then somewhat simplistically, because Helen is meant to be this more idealized version of Anna, that I think whenever I watch Helen, I'm right there with her a lot of the time.
Okay.
She's suspicious.
Can I?
I mean, she is, but I guess let her charms work on me.
Well, I have two things.
Isabelle Adjani is just like a beautiful human being.
Yeah.
This actually goes into my joke question that I still want to say. It's two questions. It's Team Anna or Team Helen, but then also Team Mark, Team Heinrich, or Team Creature. And I want to say this because if it's between Anna and Helen, I am Anna all the way.
Yeah, I'm also
I am
Anna.
too.
I am suspicious of Helen. Also, she says something turfy as hell.
Oh, yeah. I caught
literally-
that too.
That is true. That is true.
Yeah.
I wrote that
You make
down.
a good point.
She literally says something. Well, it's when Mark is saying super sexist stuff anyway.
Yeah.
So wow, they really
She
do
jumps
belong
on the
together.
bandwagon.
Yeah. Well, she goes even further. He says, I'm at war against women. They have no foresight. There's nothing about them that is stable. There's nothing to trust. They're dangerous, which he doesn't say it with husband's attitude. And then Helen is like, this is after they've slept together. Helen says, yeah, there's nothing common among women except menstruation.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
And then, she does say later, I find pathetic these stories of women contaminating the universe. But it's kind of like,
Yeah.
I mean, this is
textbook
personal to me.
turfy.
But
Even without that, there's
even without that, I don't like her.
yeah.
But to your question, Sylvie, of Team Anna or Team Helen, so I've admitted that, I have that investment in who Helen is when she's on the screen, but ultimately I am Team Anna.
Yeah.
And, I especially think of when it comes to sympathizing with that character, I think a lot of the kind of, you could call them confessions, or at least the monologues that she makes on the reel that Heinrich has taken in the middle of the movie when she's talking about, I actually wrote this down too. It's like those two sisters of faith and chance. My faith can't exclude chance, but chance can't explain faith. My faith didn't allow me to wait for chance, and chance didn't give me enough faith. And then I skipped ahead a little bit to write down, you're looking at me as if to tell me I need you to fill me up, as if I'm some empty space. And then I skipped a little more to write, I can't exist by myself because I'm afraid of myself, because I'm the maker of my own evil. Goodness is only some kind of reflection upon evil. That's all it is. And when she really just pours out this crisis that she's experiencing, I feel like, if we're going to talk about sympathy for the character, I feel like that's when I really feel it.
Totally.
And also just that, I mean, we've made passing mention of it, but that this sense of kind of crisis of faith and, consideration of does any of this mean anything is, I think, a really palpable theme throughout this movie. That, and, even before you get to these creature feature elements, or if you take away sort of the espionage thriller veneer of it, that there is not even allegory, just straight up display and possession of what could to people appear to be kind of unexplainable but true human behaviors, illnesses that they don't understand the cause of or how to deal with. And that, the movie is in many ways a meditation on mental health.
Right.
Yeah, totally.
I'll tell you where I became Team Anna, I think. There's a really striking moment. This is a visual that will stay with me, definitely. It's that moment where I think she's in a church. She's looking up.
Oh, yeah.
At Jesus.
Jesus, like on the cross. And it just is kind of going, A, B back and forth between her looking up at Jesus and the camera coming back to her. This is my interpretation of this in the moment. I think by that point in the film, you kind of understand that she is under the influence of something demonic, right? Maybe, possibly.
Supernatural.
This is how I interpreted it.
I wouldn't go to demonic, but super,
but very something that maybe not at its
inhuman,
core is, but something that I think when it manifested becomes demonic. That has brought on a demonic level sense of disassociation for her from her past self. And to me, the way she cries looking at Jesus on the cross, to me, registered as her feeling like religion has failed her.
Yeah.
And to me, that was, while I don't personally feel that way, I feel like that is such a striking way to depict that character realization. And it was really, it hit me so hard watching it. And that was when I was like, oh wow, this person is really going through, it's affecting every level of her identity.
And that's right before the meltdown scene in the U-bahn tunnel.
Yeah.
And then, it's also because that happens as a flashback. The quote that Anna says immediately when the film steps out of that flashback, reflecting on that scene, is, "What I miscarried there was Sister Faith, and what was left is Sister Chance. So I had to take care of my faith to protect it," which I think totally justifies your point about religion has failed her.
Yeah, I just want to say, as far as Team Anna or Team Helen, the reason I'm Team Anna is, as we said, I don't trust Helen. And because I get the sense that, again, she kind of feels like she's wearing a skin suit. I'm not saying she's actually doing that, but just the sense that she is stepping in and taking Anna's place in Anna's life. And she's becoming the wife, and she's becoming the mother. And that makes me feel very uncomfortable because she has a relationship to some extent with Anna. We don't see them together, but she says that she has met her plenty of times when Anna has dropped Bob off at school. I don't know how much she knows about the fraught relationship between Anna and Mark, but she is aware of Anna's presence. She is choosing to have an affair with this man. She is choosing to get, I think, uncomfortably close with their son. That doesn't sit well with me.
Well, I agree with you, and can I take that one step further?
Totally.
He looks the same.
Yeah.
At the end, as a lot of things have happened.
Yeah.
Doppelganger Mark is at the door.
Totally.
Our boy, Bob, is yelling, "Don't open the door, don't open, don't open," as all of his army figures are on the table. And he is screaming it. Don't open the door. And he runs up and drowns himself in the bath while, the good mother, the ideal mother, the ideal girlfriend and perfect wife, Helen, she just stands there slowly walking toward the door instead of even saying, "Oh, where is this screaming child running off to?" To me, that sort of says, is she also one of these doppelgangers?
That's what I thought.
I think there's
that's my
definitely that
interpretation.
But she was there earlier. And
exactly, but I'm sorry to cut you off.
Yeah.
This was the logic that I had. She's been under the influence potentially of something for a year at this point.
Yeah.
Right? So there's a possibility that there was a whole other one of these things that happened before, like creatures
that created
Helen that we then see created Mark. And I just think that we're on a timeline where
we're coming in partway through.
We're coming in partway where Helen is already in her fully realized form.
Yes.
And Mark is about to get there.
But on the other hand...
But then why do they not give a shit about Bob?
Well, Bob doesn't matter to them.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of it, nothing really matters, maybe.
Yeah,
but
this movie,
weirdly, I don't feel the same way about the doppelganger Mark. I love doppelganger Mark. He's so much better.
You trust him entirely.
Doppelganger Mark never hits a woman.
I mean, he's only in the movie for like 4 minutes.
Yeah, that's right.
Give him a chance.
He's very kind to the woman, but he also seems like he has ulterior motives. He's like, "What's the best way out of here?"
Well, and then as he's going up those stairs, that random woman is like, "What's happening?" And he's like, "Hey, here's a gun. Shoot down." And she's like, "Okay,
cool."
Yeah.
Like he has some weird magnetism.
Sanguli, yeah, exactly, yeah.
But a little bit has been said about Bob now, specifically what he does in the ending. And do we feel like this is a good moment to talk about some of the secondary characters in the story?
Sure.
Yeah.
Let's definitely get to that.
But many of these secondary characters, so some of them we've talked about already, like be it Heinrich or to some extent Bob or Helen, but we haven't talked yet about Margit. Or about either of the detectives, one whose name's Zimmerman, the other who we don't get a name for.
His name is Emmanuel.
Emmanuel, his first name. Maybe it's his last name. Emmanuel.
Emmanuel.
Yes. But so I think that as much as there is so much screen time devoted to Mark and Anna and some to their doppelgangers, like I think that the secondary characters really do help to shade this story a great deal. And so what do we think of the presences of some of the secondary characters who we haven't discussed as much yet?
So I want to take a quick moment to shout out Heinrich's mother.
Yeah.
Yes.
I
Queen.
feel okay. So again, I've only seen this movie once, but like I found her presence to be really interesting. It was like getting to know how important religion was to her and how her son went totally the other way.
Mm-hmm.
I think was very in keeping with this film. That like there's divisions that happen within families, within sons and mothers, the West East Berlin of it all too.
Yeah, totally. And I think that mother character is one of a few people we meet throughout the film who's on the periphery of the main conflict, who has a much more level head about everything. It's just, kind of can see everything that's going on, and maybe in her case reflect on it more existentially. But I feel like there are some moments, you only get a few scenes with Margit, who is, I think she refers to herself as an auntie, but she's like really a friend of the family.
That's what an auntie is, different than an aunt.
You get the sense that if she had a little more time with her, that she might just observe this relationship and be like, the fuck is going on with these
absolutely.
two?
Yeah,
100%.
Yeah.
I was listening a little bit to a podcast called Too Scary Didn't Watch, which is like one host explains horror movies to like the other two hosts. And I don't know that I caught this, but the person doing the kind of recapping was saying that they felt that it's implied or maybe confirmed that Mark and Margie have had an ongoing affair. Did you guys pick up on this?
I picked that up.
I think I missed this detail entirely.
When she's
in the
bed,
courtyard.
Also, when she's they seem antagonistic now.
Yeah.
They must have been something in the previous, but they seem antagonistic, but there's tension.
Yeah.
And in the bed, she has a broken leg. The way he leans over her is so sensual.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're like, this isn't the first time.
Or it's like, oh, they had something and they couldn't do it. So now they're not going to do this again, but they have that tension. And she has a little more glamour.
Yeah, because the first time I saw this, and when he first calls her and is like, I know you don't like me, but I need your help. And I'm like, well, what's the deal? Like, why does she hate you so much? So now it kind of makes sense. This seems like a good reason.
I took that as like, when divorces happen, friends take sides.
That was my initial interpretation.
But
Same. Can I point out something else about the side characters?
Yes.
Do it. Yeah,
this is something that I've been thinking about that I only noticed on my fourth viewing of this. This is a very twisted movie, and I think you're so focused on the imagery and the plot. The thing that I only noticed was names.
Okay.
How a lot of them are sort of deterministic or cruel and ironic in what they mean.
Okay.
Also, for example, Anna. And the name Anna is from Hannah, which means gracious or merciful. Okay, that's kind of cruel. She is none of those things,
That's very true.
Heinrich is from Heimerick, which means home ruler or king of the home, which is funny because that sort of seems to be the usurper of that at the beginning. And then it turns out he rules nothing.
Yeah.
But there's other, like Mark, which is from Mars for god of war, like warlike or god of war. But also in the more vernacular, he's a mark. He's the one who's being, the agencies are fooling him. There's another thing on that. His wife is like putting the wool over his eyes.
Yeah.
But the one that I think, there's several others, like Margit Gluckmeister means pearl, master of happiness, or master of luck. Not so lucky.
Yeah.
Emmanuel, detective, is God is with us.
Oh.
There's a couple others, but the one that's most important, Helen is torture light, whatever. I don't like Helen. We know this. Bob or Robert?
Right.
Robert means shining with glory, godlike, right?
Yeah.
Bob is what he does in the tub at the end.
That's true.
But
right before you said it, I was like, "That's it."
I was sort of explaining this to my girlfriend Lauren, and before I even got to it, she's not seen it. She's not going to see it. I explained. She immediately clicked that. She's like, "Oh, he drowns himself, right?" And I'm like,
"Wow."
But what I noticed then is the first time you see him, he's in the tub.
Yep.
Half the scene,
the sailboat.
Yeah, because Uncle Heinrich gets him a sailboat.
Right.
He is in the tub again and again when Helen comes in. And in the first scene, when he's in the tub, he is screaming sirens.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's which, at the end of the movie, he jumps in the tub while larger sirens go off.
Yeah.
He is always related to water, but this water that is inside in the tub. And he literally bobs in it. So that name is, as many of these names, it's cruel. It's a cruel joke. And because this was like English language, but it's not the primary language, I didn't even think about it.
Yeah.
And then I was watching it and I'm like, wait, all of these names are...
Yeah.
That's a good point. Like, I always felt like the term Bob felt so like, casual and flip.
Who calls a kid Bob?
Exactly.
I was thinking that. I was trying to figure out, just because of this movie when it came out, I'm like, at what point does Bob become like a silly name?
Yeah. Well, there are a lot of, it's funny, I'm a huge fan of Secret Base, which is like a really great, very nerdy content creation like YouTube page about strange sport anomalies.
Yeah.
And there's a whole thing. One of the guys who leads it is obsessed with the name Bob.
Yeah.
Because Bob apparently there were like a zillion baseball players named Bob.
Because there were a zillion people named Bob.
Right.
Everyone was named Bob.
A lot of people are still Bobs.
But this guy says Bobs have completely disappeared from the MLB.
I 100% believe
that.
that.
And I think it's interesting. It's just like, it's a name that to me feels like so casual.
Totally.
Yeah.
But in a way that you wouldn't ascribe to like a 7 or 8 year old.
Yeah. I have only known one Bob that wasn't like an adult way older than me. Like only one Bob of my own age in my whole life. I don't think it's a name that we call people.
Yeah.
There are plenty of Roberts, there are Bobbies, but Bob I think is like a name that feels like a generation before our generation.
Yeah. I know a lot of Robs in our generation.
Same thing with, have you ever met a person under 50 named Don?
I don't think so.
I have to think about it.
I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
Perhaps not.
Same kind of thing.
Yeah. Very nice. By the way, thank you, Sylvie, for that. It was really cool.
Ace in the hole right there.
It's just, I was stuck on the image of him in that.
Oh, it's terrifying.
In the tub. And every single time, and only this last few was I like, wait, he starts in the tub. Mm-hmm. He stays in the tub.
Yeah.
Full circle.
Yeah.
And
I've always kind of interpreted that ending as a fruition of the trauma that he has experienced from what's around him. And that like all this confluence of things that happens in the very end of like the doppelganger knocking on the door and you hear these airplanes above head ostensibly signifying an invasion or a air raid or something like that.
You hear missiles and sirens.
Yeah.
Nuclear war.
He can't take it anymore.
You just used the word invasion. The ending of this movie really reminded me of the ending of the invasion of the Body Snatchers that came out just a few years before.
Yeah.
Super similar vibes. Also just really unsettling AF.
I mean, these two they are body snatchers.
Yeah, totally.
That's exactly what they are.
Yeah.
Totally.
At the end, first, I thought it was more of like, the first time I watched it, I'm like, oh, alien invasion, easy.
Yeah.
But then,
me too, actually.
the way that Helen is looking at the camera as the light hits, sort of,
yeah.
the more time I watch it, I'm like, oh no, I think it's nuclear war.
Yeah.
Which I like more.
Oh, totally.
Because it sort of thread through all of this is, in addition to all this paranoia and these layers of personal stress, work stress, spy things, also these governments and its divided
the political, social element,
even this alien infestation, all of it is meaningless. Even the political powers that wage nuclear war, all of them are rendered meaningless by that. And then it's like you can try to understand it with religion, with philosophies, distracting yourself, or with holding on to your own power, whether that is political or personal or whatever else. with your possessions, and none of that can explain or understand, and you're sort of left in a bath or dead on the stairs, and it doesn't even necessarily matter.
Yeah.
That's a really interesting read. I like that.
And I find Helen's glance in that last scene to be almost like sociopathically removed from what's going on.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, there's almost like a weird interest in her eyes there.
Yeah.
Before we transition away, I just want to very briefly give a mention to two other minor characters who we've mentioned in passing, but the two detectives, Zimmerman and Emmanuel, who we briefly learn are a couple. I think that's an interesting, brief as it is, an interesting counterpoint to the romantic turmoil that we see at the center of this story.
Yeah.
I actually, in that same podcast I was listening to, Gutter Studies, that podcast, the person who made it posited that Mark, in his work trip that he comes back from, that he experienced a homosexual experience in that time, and that his experiences throughout the movie as we see it are kind of in reaction to that there is sort of like, again, this was a Lacanian analysis, so I'm about to use some terms that fit that there is this kind of like perceived phallus that he conceived of during that experience that he has lost access to and is trying very hard to recreate in some way, if I remember what that host said correctly. And that, it's only in the middle of the movie when we learn that there is one gay relationship here that he is brought back face to face with this ostensible reality, and also at the point when Mark is most relaxed in the story too.
Sure.
So that was, I thought, a really interesting interpretation. It is interesting that, especially at that time, that there are two, that kind of relationship is stated so plain spokenly, on the part of Zimmerman anyway. And also that, this relationship of theirs is ended. Well, I mean, they both meet the same fate. They wander into this apartment where Anna is keeping the creature, and almost, it's like they saw something classified and she has to kill them for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Real quick, I got to ask. So Mark is an international spy. This has come up a bunch already.
Yes.
Does covert work for the government or something like that? Why the hell does he hire what seem to be pretty
the worst
average
detectives.
PIs to trail his wife? He's also taken a leave of absence from his job.
Yeah, he drops Bob off at school.
The fuck?
What are you doing all day?
What are you doing all day?
You are trained to do this.
Exactly.
This is literally your job. The same thing occurred to me. Thank you.
Yeah.
First of all, aside from the fact the detectives are both really bad at their job, and we love a good gay relationship, and they actually seem to care for each other. Both of them are so obvious when they're trying to follow
They're
her.
terrible
It's
with the
so
eyes.
bad.
They're literally chasing her at
but-
certain moments.
I don't think he's a spy, but what we do know is that he has a contact. He doesn't see the contact's face. All they know about the contact is the pink sock. So I'm assuming some sort of like bathroom, like, oh, you see it, you pass a case. He gives 2 vials of something to the contact, and the contact won't talk to anyone but him. He is not necessarily in surveillance.
Yeah, that's one thing that occurred to me also.
He seems like a fixer. Remember, he can burn down an apartment like nothing. He masterminds Heinrich's death in the bathroom like it's nothing.
Yeah.
He seems to be on like cleanup, on negotiating dead drops and stuff. Not really on surveillance. Yeah.
Yeah, because I thought the same thing as you, Emilio. I was like, come on, you can do this yourself way better than these guys because they're terrible. But I think you make a very good point. I don't know that much about the different kinds of spy. Perhaps he's just not
likely
that adept.
Thing for you to say.
That's my cover, and I'm sticking to it. But you would think that he would know a good spy, like a good surveillance spy.
Thank you.
Yeah. I feel like by hiring those detectives, that's like the 1981 version of using the first Google result.
Yeah. Well, they have a nice office. They clearly make some money.
Open the phone book to surveillance.
Exactly.
Yeah. And, well, I mean, I also appreciate, Sylvie, that you brought up the little detail about the pink socks. Yeah. Because at the end of the movie, you see the pink socks.
And it's his boss.
Yeah.
And it's his boss who, in the meeting at the beginning, is asking him about the man with the pink socks.
And I'm like, do we see his feet at the beginning?
No, we don't.
Pink socks at the beginning.
We don't, but we know it's the same guy. And he's the one who approaches him in the middle and says, and they look at the dead dog, and not the dead dog in the story, he says, but the dead dog in the canal, in the river. And he's like, oh, we can clean up a dead dog, but help us clean up the like dying world or something. Yeah. I do want to point out, it's very interesting because we don't know who knows. We know that his contact is his boss. Do the other bosses know? Are they putting him on meaningless missions? Or do the other bosses not know? Does Mark know? Like, I love that because it just makes, like, what is his job?
Like, his job also maybe means nothing.
Running in circles for his bosses.
You
oh my God, same.
But in that same scene, one detail, or when I say that same scene, I mean when the boss returns to Mark when he's looking on at the canal near the end of the movie. He talks a lot about Mark's successor too, and they says they don't want the successor, they want him. But then moments later, the Mark doppelganger is revealed. So Mark's successor just appears in like no matter what in reality.
They do say when he says, oh, like when he mentions that he mentions, oh, I met a man who loved everything. He died in a pile of shit.
Yeah.
And talking about Heinrich, and they say, oh, we know about that. That's just details. Yeah. So which they could just be like, oh, we know you killed another guy. We know you're doing this.
Yeah.
But and it also could be like his bosses is just pretending to know.
Yeah.
Maybe they know. Maybe they know about everything. Maybe they know about one thing. It's never clear, and I love that.
I think the way you just described, maybe they know everything, maybe they know one thing, maybe they know nothing, is like the way you can feel watching this movie, like at any point, like pause at any point and just be like, where are you at? I'm like, that description is it.
Totally.
Yeah.
I'm so glad to help.
Thank you. Yes. Oh, any other little details we want to point out?
I think it was Madeline who mentioned earlier on that you see Heinrich's handwriting the most in the movie, and that the first postcard that we see that he's sent to Anna says, I've seen half of God's face, the other half is you. And I feel like that's a really interesting way to start off this narrative, considering where it all goes.
Yeah.
But also that it's this kind of like grotesque image of half of a face. Mm-hmm. And also that, that we're like, this is a movie about doppelgangers. I just think that that's a really nice little piece of poetry for the keen-eyed viewer right there.
For sure. I like that. Can I mention just one scene that I just visually was so striking to me? I can't even remember what was happening. All I remember is watching it. I was like, wow, this is really cool. There's a scene where Mark is in the apartment and it's at night and he's on the phone with somebody and he's playing with the lights.
Yes.
Yeah. And there's something so cool about that. All I'll say is just on a visceral level, there was something about that was like, that is fucking cool.
Yeah. Unnerving.
It's unnerving. Yes. It's very unnerving. So I love that moment.
One other one that I thought of is in these reels of film that Heinrich sends to Mark in the middle of the movie. I was kind of struck by the editing of this scene of Anna teaching a dance class.
Oh,
yeah.
Which
awful.
It's awful.
I hate that scene so much.
It's this
in a good way.
Yeah. Like abusive experience. But the cuts in particular really struck me because, I mean, if this is something that Heinrich is shooting from a first person perspective as it's happening, there are some cuts that happen there that could not possibly occur on someone's home movie camera.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And so I wonder if there's a little bit, I wouldn't call it like a transition into subjectivity, but a transition into actually the objectivity of that scene.
I think so.
Yeah.
That's how I was reading it.
Yeah. And so, away from just Heinrich's camera eye, and also because Mark is watching the film at that moment, I think that that's a moment where it kind of goes beyond simply his viewerly eye too.
Yeah.
So I like that.
I was just going to mention that oftentimes for our podcast, I watch the movie we're talking about without my wife. And as that scene came up, I was like, because my wife is a dancer and knows a lot about the power dynamics between teachers and students. I was like, she's definitely not going to enjoy this film.
Definitely.
Oh my God, amazing.
This same thing occurred to me.
Yeah,
as somebody that took ballet for many years as a child and young teen and preteen, I never experienced anything like this, luckily, or witnessed it. But there is, I think, in ballet in particular, they really do lean into this particular kind of power dynamic and the pain that has to come along with ballet training in particular. Mm-hmm. So I had a little bit of PTSD watching this.
Oh no.
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
Not nearly as much as I'm sure your wife did. Would.
I just want to add a couple more little bits.
Mm-hmm.
One is there's this one tiny speaking role. After he burns down the apartment, some random woman on the street is like screaming. She's like, God's light avenge them, giving it up clean and getting it back dirty. And I'm like, I have no idea what that means. That's the only line this random woman says.
Kind of weird.
Is she the woman listed on Wikipedia as Sarah, woman with clubfoot?
I don't know because I couldn't see. I guess.
I think that registers. Yeah.
Sarah, woman with clubfoot.
I mean, it's great. The only other thing is, in that same area, the hot dog place kitty corner from 87 Sebastianstrasse.
Yeah.
That like the detective goes that you see in multiple scenes. scenes.
Yeah.
Honorable mention of like random hot dog vendor.
Yeah, definitely.
Who like keeps hearing like stabbings and shots and like a lot of all night sex with a monster thing from that apartment, and just is like, this is my spot.
I gotta make my money.
That's Berlin, but it's a real New York mentality.
Yeah.
Totally.
I also love that the match cut that they have. Like he's like starts eating, and then it's the aerial shot of him entering the apartment. And
I love
like,
it.
beautiful.
Speaking of New York mentalities, I mean, in the scene when the detective Emmanuel begins his short-lived surveillance of Anna, when he's standing near her in the U-bahn station, I couldn't not think of the French Connection.
Oh yeah, I thought the same thing. The kind of cat
Definitely.
and mouse on a subway.
Exactly. Yeah. Only that, I mean, I guess Popeye Doyle's not particularly subtle either.
Definitely not.
But also that then honorable mention to the man who sits next to Anna on the U-bahn, who
the bananas.
who takes the banana.
Gotta get some potassium
to no chagrin from her, but also
he has
interesting
the vodka bottle too.
Yeah.
Interestingly about him, I mean, he's in this kind of disheveled gray suit, which a little bit earlier in the movie is exactly the outfit that Mark is wearing too. Maybe not that suit, but a disheveled gray suit.
Mark generally wears gray.
Yeah, generally.
With different shades, but like...
Yes.
I like how that guy is not greedy. He's like, I just want one single banana.
Yeah.
The potassium's good, and it, it's important.
Absolutely. What do we think?
I'm ready for universe sharing.
Definitely. Same here.
Oh, I am ready.
I was just saying something about this detective Emmanuel. So maybe that's his first name, and his last name, we don't hear it in Possession, but let's say his last name is Brodsky, and that his life in West Berlin has been a relatively recent advent. Some years before settling in this fractured city, he had lived in England and worked for the government as a clinical psychologist. And the highlight of Dr. Brodsky's career in medicine was his work on an experimental treatment for criminal behavior that involved brainwashing patients by subjecting them to a series of propaganda films while having their eyes pried open and being infused with certain chemicals. Named the Ludovico technique, this treatment was only ever applied to one patient, a young delinquent named Alex, who appeared for a time to be successfully cured by it. However, after time proved this assumption incorrect, Dr. Brodsky and his fellow clinicians were held responsible by the government and stripped of their medical licenses before being subjected to criminal proceedings. However, rather than face the certainty of a guilty verdict, Dr. Brodsky decided to flee to West Berlin and take up a profession requiring much less accreditation. And that would be private investigation.
No wonder he's not that good at it.
It makes so much more sense this way.
It really does. I like that very much.
And in the process, met a fellow investigator named Zimmerman, who would soon become his work and romantic partner.
There we go.
I think
What a happy ending if you don't go into the plot of the film itself.
I think more than one person knows what film I'm connecting to.
Definitely.
I think we all do.
Well, who's going to say it?
3, 2, 1.
A
Clockwork Orange.
That's the one.
I like a good countdown. Thank you,
Yes.
Sylvie.
Yeah, we got to do that more often. Thank you. Yes, and the actor who played Detective Emmanuel is a guy named Carl During, who also plays one of the doctors in A Clockwork Orange, who you see sitting in the theater when Alex gets that treatment done to him.
Very nice. Very
totally.
cool.
Nice.
Sure, I can go. Although Anna does not make it out of this film alive, her doppelganger Helen survives to see another day. So it seems like she's about to get sucked into the creature's orbit. Now, I know that we've all kind of decided that we're Team Anna, but for the purposes of this, I'm going to say perhaps Helen is not that bad. We don't know that much about her, so maybe she has some redeeming qualities. And Bob's drowning of himself quickly helps Helen suss out the fact that this is not the same Mark that she was originally drawn to. And we don't know what the creature is capable of now that he seems to be at full power. Helen realizes very quickly that she needs to escape the country. So she seeks out her archaeologist brother, Omar, who is involved in a plot to overthrow the government of their home country. After his passing, Helen, now going by her birth name of Shira, makes it her mission to carry on Omar's work. She smuggles her main bargaining chip against the government out of the country via the luggage of an unsuspecting singer-songwriter from New York City, but is unable to retrieve her items when they arrive in Morocco. So she soon ropes them into her plans, and hopefully their bumbling will not cause too many problems for her along the way as she tries to introduce some social justice into her home country.
I'm so glad you brought this in.
I haven't seen it, but I know Ishtar.
Yes.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Definitely. It's worth it.
Recommend.
Yeah.
Isn't this the second time you've connected to that movie?
Yes.
Iconic.
I love it. Yours is Ishtar and mine is Space Buddies.
Yeah.
So,
Totally.
there we go.
Yeah.
I was also going to say that you've also done an Elaine May, right?
Yes, I have.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That's true. That's another Elaine.
Love her.
Yep.
I think my repeated shared universe is Twin Peaks.
There you go.
That's the one
I
keep
am
coming
not
back
surprised
to.
in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, and if I haven't done it more than once already, I mean, Dog Day Afternoon is eventually going to get there.
Totally.
Yes.
Yeah.
Iconic.
Very cool.
All right. Mine is more of a prequel sort of thing.
Cool.
Great.
Let's say that our friend Margit actually had a messy life beforehand, different part of Germany,
Messier than
perhaps.
this one?
Yeah, well, in some ways, emotionally for her, not as bloody. But, she's still in Germany, and she was more into fashion and loved wigs. And perhaps she had a very unlucky love life before this, several marriages ending in different kinds of disasters. But maybe she had chemistry with perhaps a younger woman, and which also sort of fell apart pretty dramatically. She probably has a strange daughter and kind of mistreated one of her overworked friends who she treats like a servant and smashes a tea set. And then this is all before she actually gets to Berlin.
Ah, gotcha. Oh my.
Yeah.
Inspired guess here. Is this a Fassbinder film?
You got it.
Good job.
Okay.
Nice.
Excellent.
Now-
That was impressive.
Thank you. I mean, because I didn't look up her credits, but I see that this actress, who's also named Margit Carstensen, I mean, she's clearly German.
That's her?
So, but I don't know which film. Okay, I'm going to take 3 guesses.
Okay, you're going to get it.
The Bitter Tears of
You
Petra von Kant.
got it.
Nice.
You got it.
First guess.
Weird
Love it.
movie to watch.
I still have to see it, but I've heard many great things.
It is kind of hard to watch because it's just long and kind of dreary and frustrating.
Mhm.
It is beautiful.
Cool.
I'd say the
Maybe
same
a little
about
bit like
Possession.
I was
Yeah,
going to
totally.
say, yeah, same. Yeah.
Possession's more
There
fun.
are
More
parts
fun.
of it that are fun.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some of that music in Possession too is pretty fun.
Oh, yeah.
Good call, also.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, Emilio.
Very cool. All right, I guess I'll round this off with another prequel type energy here. So we see that Anna is pretty stressed out as a wife and a mother and is struggling to find peace in her marriage with Mark. She seems to have a bit of a wandering eye too, and there's an openness at least in attempting to juggle multiple sexual partners at once. I'd like to propose that these traits, as well as the skill of avoiding attention when committing felonies, are actually hereditary ones, because I think Anna has a pretty interesting and well-known mother in France, a movie star from the 1930s named Vivienne Denver. One day after the premiere of a film in which she was in concludes, she frantically telephones a young writer named Frederick as she tells him that he must come quick to help dispose of a body. You see, according to Vivian, a stalker of hers entered her home and accosted her before she was able to subdue him and knock him off of her balcony. There's a bit of a power imbalance in this relationship, Vivian being an established star and Frederick being the eager studio writer who's looking for his break. So Frederick agrees to take the body away from her home in his car and dispose of it. Turns out, though, this was not a stalker, but someone from the studio. And when Frederick is apprehended by police before he can get rid of the body, he's arrested and he takes the fall for Vivian. Vivian emerges unscathed from this quote-unquote manslaughter and continues her relationship with an important politician. All of this happens just before France is invaded and they enter World War II, by the way. Vivian retains her position in society after the war, though, and settles down with another person of wealth and status. And it's with that person that she has a daughter named Anna, who I believe carries on her nature, restless in relationships and surprisingly okay with committing murder. I did wager before we got on mics.
Yes, Emilio did say that you would give us $20.
I would give anybody
$20
if you did not look this up and knew the name of this film.
I do not.
I'm
no
stumped.
one's walking away with
We are
$20
all
today.
stumped. You can keep your $20.
Very cool. This is a film that I love. It's called Bon Voyage.
Okay.
Came out in 2003. This is, again, video store era.
Mm-hmm.
This movie freaking slaps. It is so good. It's kind of a convoluted plot. This, what I just described, happens in the very beginning of this film. And it's the thing that sets off a chain of a bunch of other things. But it is super fun. This is basically like a forgotten movie.
Mm-hmm.
I was looking it up. It's like, I feel like most people just don't know that this movie exists. Bon Voyage, if you can find it, check it out. It is a very fun film.
Whoa.
And that's Isabelle Adjani. She's in both of them.
Amazing.
So, really
Wow.
good. Thank you guys for humoring me on that one.
Of course.
Are there any last things we want to say about Possession?
Remains a totally, I think, singular movie. Everything that we have said for the last 2 hours has justified that. Watching it now, I feel, I felt a lot of benign confusion after watching it the first time. I feel like I understand it much better now. It's, in some ways, I think, a movie that is straightforward in its telling, but what it's straightforward about is some really weird shit. Philosophically, I think maybe it's a little less straightforward, but I'll leave that to the theorists. But yeah, it's still, I think, in its own way, a pretty perfect movie. And as many comparisons as we have made, there's nothing else quite like it.
Well said.
Thanks.
Truly.
Totally.
On a very different note, I think the doppelganger is much cuter before it develops the personality as the weird creature. I think it looks really
interesting.
cool. No offense to Sam Neill, beautiful man.
Yeah.
But Sam Neill, yes. Mark,
Yeah, totally.
I saw
weird.
Doppelganger
Mark
Mark.
has bad vibes.
Yes.
But like that one scene where like it is mostly developed and at Zimmerman's house where great scene.
Yeah.
Totally.
Cool.
And worth saying too that Sam Neill, I think, is one of the great underappreciated actors. Period.
He's so good.
Yeah.
He's very good in this movie. I agree. So I'll say that I feel like it's really hard to have a definitive conversation about this movie. It's just
That's
like,
certainly true.
it's really, really, I feel like there's so much happening in it. That being said, this was a really fun conversation about this movie. Thank you guys. And thank you for introducing this film to me, because this was my first time seeing it. Really cool. I feel like this is a movie that I'm gonna watch again in the next couple years and probably take away totally different things from. I would totally recommend this movie to a very particular type of person.
Yeah.
The Metrograph goer.
Yeah. It was great. So thank you guys. Very, very fun. And I would be open to have another conversation about this movie again down the line.
And I mean, thank you for indulging us and talking about this movie.
Totally. And Sylvie, thank you for coming on and joining us.
Oh my God, thank you for having me. This was so much fun. I love to be a part of it. Great movie, gret people. Yeah,
I knew you'd fit right in, and we'd love to have you back.
Totally.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
Titan. Whenever we get to Titan or A Serious Man or The Handmaiden, some of your other all-time favorites, you'll be the first person we reach out to.
Yeah, there's a certain type of movie I like.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I cannot wait to see A Serious Man again. I saw that one again, really, really liked it.
Yeah.
But I would love to get deep on that one. So I agree. Whenever you want to do it, I'm down.
One of these days.
Let's go.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, in addition to this podcast, you can follow us on TikTok and Instagram at Sleepless Cinematic Pod. You can contact us via email. We love when we hear from you. All emails are welcome except for romance scam emails. Those are not welcome. One is enough. Thank you. If you would like to write to us with anything else, you can do that at sleeplesscinematicpod@gmail.com. If you're on Letterboxd, you can follow me, Madeline, at Patroness of Cats. Sylvie, are you on Letterboxd?
I am, but I don't use it as a social thing.
That's fine.
It's more of my internal keeping track of stuff. Yeah, it's my diary. Don't read it.
Yeah.
Don't read it, Mom.
And you can follow me, Julian, at Julian_Barthold. If you're listening to us for the first time, thanks for finding us. If this is the 4th or 5th or 50th time you've listened to us, thanks for sticking with us. We've really grown to love doing this, And it means the world to have our budding listenership grow.
And if you haven't already, we'd ask you, return listener, to please write us a positive review and rate us on your podcast platform of choice. This is one of the best ways for new listeners to find us and help our podcast take its next steps. You can also keep it grassroots. You can tell a friend to tell a friend to tell 5 friends about the Sleepless Cinematic Podcast. That helps too.
Do not open.
Do not open.
Do not open.
Do not
Do
open.
not open.
Do not open.
Kerplunk.
Do not open!